All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another webinar hosted by TIC Thermal and Andy Starnes of Insight Fire Training. So Andy brings over 30 years of experience from his career as a battalion chief in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Andy, thank you for being here today to talk with everyone about the value of a situational awareness TIC and explaining its features and benefits. So if you have any questions today, please just type them in the chat and we will do our best to answer them in a timely manner throughout this webinar. And with that being said, I hope everyone enjoys it. And Andy, please take it away.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you all for joining today. We're going to talk about the value of a situational awareness TIC. For those of you who may not be aware, I was involved with TIC Thermal in the development, testing, and product evaluation process of the FirePro 300 and the Attack Pro. So I take a lot of pride in what we're going to talk about today, because to me, my mission as a fire service educator, now as a retired gentleman, is to help firefighters do their job and get home to their families. And I personally believe this device will help you do that if properly trained on it. And we're going to talk about the value of these devices, differences in them, and how you can use them to your advantage. So first of all, where did the term situational awareness TIC come from? Now, there's situational awareness that Dr. Gassaway teaches, which I highly recommend you take one of his courses. He's the master of that. But this term, as far as applied to this device, was originally introduced by Scott Safety in 2016, was not introduced by me. This was introduced due to the Scott site and the FLIR K2 being placed on the market. And there was all these cameras and people wanted to know, why is this different than a standard camera? And Scott called it using it for maintaining situational awareness. And that is where we started with the terminology of situational awareness cameras, and Insight Training pushed the term decision making. The U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study, if you get a chance to look that up, I highly recommend it. There's a book based on that same gentleman's work, William Mora, talks about firefighter disorientation as the loss of direction due to the lack of vision in structure fire. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've reviewed 12 Maydays online that will refer to the same things we're going to talk about today. A lot of people are pushing data, not drama, when it comes to line of duty deaths, and I understand that not too many of us die in a fire, and I'm thankful for that. However, there is a large number of firefighters who are injured, lost, and disoriented due to Maydays to two primary reasons, which we'll discuss today, that you can summarize the contributing factors into. And my mission is to help you do your job better, smarter, safer. And if that bad thing happens to you, to help you get out of it, regain orientation. And as Project Mayday highlights about self-rescue, we want to help you rescue yourself. TIC Thermal makes a group of fire service thermal imaging cameras. Here you see before you, there's two main types that are in the market today. There are situational awareness TICs and decision-making TICs. We get calls about this every week. Firefighters will try to buy a cheaper industrial camera to use for training and find out, sadly, that those cameras were not made for that. You need to buy a fire service rated camera. Whatever you buy, it has to be rated for fire. If you don't do that, you're going to find out the hard way that those devices that you see online that are thermal imaging cameras that may have a high dynamic range are not insulated nor intended for fire, that you will avoid the warranty, burn those cameras up. So if you're going to buy a camera for fire training, make sure it's built for firefighting. The FirePro 200 and 300 situational awareness cameras, TAC Pro Plus, and TAC Pro VRS are the decision-making cameras. We're going to focus on situational awareness TICs today and how they have changed the market and how it can help you make your career longer, safer, smarter, and help you get home to your families. Current situational awareness TICs that are on the market today. Let's discuss those briefly. These are the ones I kind of categorized them onto two columns here for you to look at. There are primarily 9 Hertz models and 16 to 13 Hertz models. The reason you need to know that is that if you get a camera that is in a 9 Hertz category, you're going to find out the hard way. It's going to frustrate your firefighters, and they're probably not going to use them very much due to the fact that 9 Hertz is extremely slow and lags as the firefighter moves, scans, and if the camera nukes or shutters when it switches between high and low gain, it causes a significant delay. So if you look at the models on the left, they are all less than 9 Hertz or up to 9 Hertz, and they are all 19,200 pixels, which is 1/4 of the resolution that NFPA says that a firefighter needs. So these are very low resolution, very slow, and they're marketed quite passionately of how they're going to help you. I think they're good in their intention. However, The resolution quality and the delays that you experience with them are not what a firefighter needs. I even had a rep tell me that a firefighter doesn't move their head that fast in a fire, therefore they don't need anything greater than 9 hertz. Evidently, that person has not been in a life-threatening emergency before and had to spin their head around and look for an egress point or look for their fellow firefighter. If you're going to buy a situational awareness camera, you need to make sure it is at least in the 16 to 30 hertz category. The reason why is we don't recommend anything below 25 hertz, but SEEK kind of broke the rules when they came up with mixed gain mode. They made these cameras faster because each pixel switches pixel by pixel, which makes it faster. 16 hertz models do have a lag or delay to them. The 25 hertz and greater do not. You may see the occasional stutter or pause in any camera. Won't anybody tell you that no camera is seamless or shutterless. They all have a pause at some point. It has to do with the camera processing information, flat field correction due to amount of changes in hot to cold. There will always be a brief pause at some point in any camera. Some of them are faster, some of them are slower. However, if you're looking at situational awareness cameras, you want to stay in the 16 to 30 hertz. I prefer 25 hertz and greater. Mixed gain mode has broke the rules, as I say, because it makes these cameras faster. It allows firefighters to scan and find their way out. Because if your low air alarm is quit, you're pushed to the floor due to alarm time or needle prick, bee sting, pain sensation from being burned, you're not going to smooth bump to the pump, and you're definitely not going to slow down your scan to look for something if you're dying. You need a device that's going to keep up with you. It's going to need to be high resolution, allow you to see your way out, and you're going to see why these devices are important. And if you're a fire chief or someone who's just purchasing cameras, say, oh, they got XYZ camera, it's good enough. I want you to put yourself in their shoes. I'm going to go put you in a burn building. I'm going to disorient you, and I'm going to give you a 9 hertz, 19,200 pixel camera that you won't be able to see a door further than 7 feet away, and see if you get home to your family and tell me if that's good enough. Now, if that sounds a little harsh, it's meant to be, because there's too many departments buying basically strictly on price and not on performance, and they're betting your life on a bottom line item versus understanding that these devices can be an asset or a detriment. And I'm tired of them being a detriment. The main reason they're being a detriment is because people buying things that are inexpensive or lack of training and education, which could be combined together to equate to disaster. And if you look at the disasters we're facing, the causes of traumatic injuries, not deaths, in these structure fires, per a research paper from UL about full-scale floor, system, field, and laboratory fire experience, showed the major cause of traumatic injuries in 2010 were determined to be firefighters becoming lost, structural collapse, and rapid fire progression. Sounds familiar based on the Maydays I just looked at in the last 10 to 12 days. All had something to do with becoming lost, collapse, or rapid fire progression. Now, why wouldn't we be able to see those things coming? Good question. Where are we working? In zero visibility. What are we protected by? Gear that keeps us from feeling. What happens when your core temp goes up? The same people tell you not to use a TIC because they want you to use your God-given senses. Your God-given senses shut down at 140 degrees Fahrenheit on skin temp, and as little as 1 degree core temp increase inside of your body due to the gear you wear, your hearing can start to lose, or auditory exclusion can start to lose very important details such as, help me, I'm over here. So should you not have technology to help fill the gaps where your body and your senses fail you? Yes, the military does, and they are amazing, yet we think we don't need it. And if you look at 2016 to 2022, 23 firefighter line of duty deaths were due to being lost, caught, trapped, or disoriented. A lot of people gloss this over and go, oh, it was only 23 people. Are you out your mind? If I took your best friend, your husband, your wife, your daughter, your son from you today and said, well, we only lost one firefighter, one that could have been saved is too many. Let me tell you something really quickly. I believe that no firefighter should die in a residential building because there's too much training, too much knowledge, too much technology, and too much information between GIS and all the different things. UL even built a house based on the floor plan they used was found in 70% of America. If we can figure that out in a research study, we probably can figure out the layout of a building and where everything is, and potentially where the fire is, and use a device to find the paths we need to search or attack the fire quicker, faster, safer, and get you home, and not be surprised by rapid fire development, or get lost or disoriented, or regain orientation if something bad happens. Because 10 firefighters died due to that reason that were volunteer, 9 that were career. The remaining were wildland firefighters. And that's a whole different ball game. I'm not an expert in that. I can just tell you, God bless them, because those boys and girls fight things that are unimaginable, especially right now in our world. The speed of fire growth in that is, I can't even calculate it. So think about that for a second. Is this not worth a small investment and some training to protect your firefighters, reduce injuries for you purchasing agents and HR specialists who look at the bottom line every year of how many firefighters are out of work due to sick time and injury? You would save hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in workers' comp claims just by making your firefighters safer. And then if, God forbid, they get killed, because now the world is a litigation-rich environment. And all it's going to take is one lawyer to figure out you gave them something that didn't work and you provide them no training on it. That's not going to go too well in court, because trust me, it's coming. Tragedy and litigation is how the fire service changes. If you don't believe me, read the NFPA standards and ask yourself, why did they get updated? Each time they're written in blood due to tragedy or litigation. And that's why I come up to this point. Why are these devices needed? NIOSH, if you read these reports, and I read a lot of them, matter of fact, it breaks my heart now. I don't look at them from a Monday morning quarterback. I don't look at them from, why didn't they see that coming? Because I've made all the same mistakes. I'm chief of sinners, as Paul says. But they consistently point out all these contributing factors that if you summarize these, because I'm a simple person, into two categories, firefighters were unaware of changing conditions, or they became lost, trapped, or disoriented. And those changing conditions could be rapid fire development, could be a collapse. And if you look at the actual injuries, 18% of over 60,000 injuries that resulted in time off from work were due to being lost, caught, trapped, or disoriented. And here's a big one for you. 64% of the United States of America right now is protected by the volunteer or combination departments who do not have staffing, who some do not have funding, who some do not even own a thermal imaging camera. Public, if you're listening to me right now, who are cutting funds from your local volunteer fire department, who's raising money through barbecues and fish fries to protect your children, what would it cost you right now to save up a couple $1,000s to buy 1 or 2 cameras for them to make sure they get home to their families so they can protect yours? They risk their lives every day and should have a justification for a secondary means of orientation to find you, find a way to prevent further damage in your home and find their way out. And if I sound a little passionate about it, I've had a lot of coffee. And the main reason behind this, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm tired of seeing the same things happen over and over again and people blaming them for statistics and the environment's changing. Yes, the environment's changing. You know what's not changing? What's not changing is our approach to the problem. And we need to fix our approach. And this unaware of changing conditions could be simple as a firefighter has literally crawled into the fire by accident. Due to high TPP of gear, they don't even know they're in the fire room until their gear is saturated and they end up in here. In this Fire Pro 300 video, you can clearly see the fire moving up across the ceiling, up the stairs, and we switched to survey mode, that's probably not the right application mode for this. I want you to look at what the fire room looks like adjacent to it and look up the stairs with me. Our unofficial motto is we do a lot of dumb things in the name of science. We're not really supposed to be here, but look up. Is that where you want to put your head without a hose line? Would you drag a victim down that? That's what we call thermal situational awareness. So if you're not aware of that, where could you end up? You could end up in the flow path, which is, if you read line of duty dust, one of the things that they point out is the words unidirectional flow path or exhaust. You don't want to get caught in one of those, not without a gun called a hose line. Your Fire Pro 200 or 300 from Seek has a 25 hertz refresh rate, and mixed gain mode prevents that lag and also gives you earlier colorization of the threat. And despite what my thermography friends and my old school thermal imaging training instructors think, firefighters don't respond to grayscale, not under stress. The research points it out, the data points it out. Unless you're super well trained in it, they're looking for color. And I know that's not the best thing, but I always teach 2 rules. Convection can point out direction, colorization can give you information. You need both. That's why NFPA 1801 says no more than 50% of the overall dynamic range or color bar here on the right-hand side can be grayscale. They even recognize there needs to be color there to get people's attention. Make sure you understand that and teach your firefighters when your camera engages color and what the absence of color means, because the absence of color isn't the absence of heat. And there are more than 50 shades of gray, despite what the movies tell us. This is two of the exact same pictures taken recently. My good friend John Dixon's training academy up in New Jersey. If you look at this picture on the left, we're looking at a doorway that goes into the fire room. In grayscale and TI basic, it will not colorize till we see 302 degrees. 1 pixel in a seat camera will colorize. We're just outside of that range, but we see this white, seemingly innocent line, probably about 3 feet from the ceiling down. Whereas if I switch it to survey mode and then take the exact same picture seconds later, you see the same hose line in the floor, same outline, but the area that is white blob on the left is now colorized because it shows color at 150 degrees Fahrenheit beginning versus 302. Now we're seeing a dramatic difference of, hey, the fire is to the left. It's coming out and it's hitting that ceiling and going which direction? And we read the convection, it's coming towards us and also going up those stairs. Isn't that worth taking a few seconds with a device that gives you that information and allows you to see where the fire is? If you're searching, you could simply close this door, possibly even search that fire room depending on conditions. You know, shudder the thought we could search a fire room. We can do that depending on conditions. Based on your training, your TPP of your gear and conditions, firefighters need to make decisions based on conditions, not based on policy, not based on standards. They look in there and they look at it and say, I can get in, I can get out, or I can't. And that's based on them and, the size of the room and conditions. So let them make those decisions based on that, but give them data-based decisions so they can do that. So if we're going to use data, let's let them use data and make decisions, not look at it and go, I can't go. We have a model called go, no go decision making. It doesn't mean don't go. It means if you see these things, you need to fix them. Firefighters are in there. They went anyway. They just need to be able to fix those things by seeing that information. And the only device that gives them that information in real time and high resolution currently in a situational awareness TIC is a Seek Fire Pro 300. It gives you the same decision-making power as a decision-making camera in a situational awareness housing for less than the price of a cell phone, and it gives you the same color palette, all the options. You just don't have the insulated value you have in a decision-making camera. And firefighters are finding out the hard way. Smaller also means easy to break. So don't use the small device as a hammer, please. Let's look at some ways that these devices can be advantages to us and specific attributes you should look at. This is 3 pictures. Picture on the left is a uniform temperature environment. We smoke it up with burn barrels, very little heat, but you're remote from the fire. If you read some of the Project Mayday stuff or William Morris stuff, it talks about steam or after flashover or being away from it after collapse. Firefighters get disoriented. I watched a Mayday video this morning of a helmet cam footage that would have been just like this. There was lots of moisture, very uniform temps. You need a camera that has a low thermal sensitivity such as this, that you can make out, hey, that's a kitchen table. I'm possibly in a dining room. The second photo shows you a metal frame bunk bed. Isn't that important to know? How many of you do search training? When you put in bunk beds, they always miss the top bunk. Well, what if they see it first and then go search it? They know to search it. We're not advocating them to stare at the camera, but if they scan at the room and go bunk bed right and go straight to that bunk bed, search top and bottom, isn't that better than searching the bottom and missing the top and realize there was a child there? And then on the far right photo, we can see the stairs leading down, to which one of my instructors, identified a basement fire. Isn't that important to be able to identify the stairway and the route to the fire, the flow path, all of that? So these devices, if we're going to be efficient and effective with firefighters, if you want to help them understand this and also make them appreciate it, they all, not the company officers, they are going to have a tool in their hand. They're going to be searching. They're going to have hose lines. So they don't need something that's heavy. The 200 or 300 weighs 5 grams. That's not going to get in their way. And it has to be fast frame rate, which means what we talked about earlier. I prefer 25 hertz or greater to prevent that delay of information that could equate to life or death. And the image clarity shall be sufficient in nature for them to identify objects and hazards. You'll find that most of these situational awareness cameras do not provide the same quality as decision-making cameras. The Fire Pro 300 is the only one that matches it. So you're able to see what you need to see for better decision-making, doesn't get in your way, doesn't weigh you down, and it's basically clipped to you, very small, and it's fast. Simple, easy, fast, reliable. That's what firefighters need. Those are your attributes and advantages. Let's look at why it needs to be 25 hertz frame rate or refresh rate or greater. I hear all the time people say, well, that camera's 25 hertz. These other cameras are 60 hertz. That means that one's faster. In theory, yes, until you put them side by side and realize that mixed gain mode operates pixel by pixel and every other camera operates percentage based, not pixel by pixel. So they have to have a certain amount of pixels before they shift between high and low gain or high and low sensitivity. Seek, each pixel switches independently. So it's like having 76,800 switches. Wherever the camera on the market needs 2% of the pixels to agree at a certain percentage, 3% of the pixels to agree at a certain temperature and percentage, 5% of the pixels to agree at a certain temperature or percentage, 18% or 32% before it shifts. And there's a change in image clarity when that occurs. There is a benefit or a disadvantage to every camera, and you will find in standard dual gain cameras, high and low gain for the most part will provide, one will work better in one temperature range or the other, but not both. So if you look at this direct quote from NIST, when they did the first thermal imaging research needs for first responders workshop, the very beginning, the foundation building blocks, if you will, that led up to NFPA 1801, they said the display refresh rate is important in applications in which the camera operator may be moving or constantly scanning the scene. That's what firefighters do. They don't sit stationary. And NFPA 1801, the thermal imaging standard, says that if you have an NFPA certified camera, it shall have a minimum video refresh rate at 25 frames per second in both detector and display. Notice that. People don't read the fine print. Some of them are not that way. Why is that? You know, most movies are filmed at 25 frames per second. Why? What can your eye see? What about that same frame rate? There might be something to that. This is the cheat sheet for the FirePro 300. That's an actual webinar you can watch. And if you look at this, this has the exact same specs, if you will, as the Attack Pro VRS with two major differences. This camera is no longer in the pistol grip orientation, it's in a cell phone orientation. So you don't have to turn it sideways. For years, firefighters told me, said, I know you teach people to turn the camera sideways in gangster grip. Why don't they make it where it's already turned sideways? Well, in this case, SEEK did. It's 57 by 42. Those numbers are incorrect there. That's a typo. I need to fix that. I'm sorry. Make mistakes when I don't drink my coffee early. And that allows you to see floor to ceiling in one shot. You don't have to turn the camera sideways. Has a 6-hour battery life, has everything the VRS has, except for, guess what? It doesn't have the same over temperature warning or insulative value. This camera cannot take the same amount of heat as the bigger camera. For average everyday firefighting, this one will work just fine. You won't have any problems. If you're a live fire instructor, such as flashover training, doing DES above the fire, you will find you will overheat this camera. So now you know the truth. I give you the good, bad, and ugly of every camera. So don't buy a little camera and think it'll go in big fire and not get hot. It will. If you lay your cell phone out in the sun, what will it say in a matter of minutes? Too hot for use. It doesn't have the actual insulative capacities. The FirePro 300 gives you decision-making power in situational awareness housing and less than the price of the iPhone or Android. I'm an iPhone guy, so I'm kind of stuck. What do they say? Firefighters hate change. The two things change in the way things are. I don't want to change from my phone. Let's talk about why you want a camera that's faster. If I scan a room, many of you have seen this before, but I challenge you to do this demonstration. Take any 25 hertz or greater camera and put a heat source in the middle of the room. It doesn't have to be a fire. It could be a burn barrel outside. It could be anything over 300 degrees. And I want you to scan, average firefighter scan, from wall to wall. Not super fast, not super slow. What a firefighter would do. We teach them to slow their scan down. And notice that the majority of the cameras, when it sees a heat source, it will stop, freeze, and shift. Some do it in 3/10 of a second. Some of them take 5 seconds to change. You'll have to figure that out on your own because I'm not bashing manufacturers. I want all thermal imaging cameras to be used, not thrown away. Because I learned when I worked for the fire department, I didn't have a choice what they gave me, right? So you may like another brand, another nozzle, another type of turnout gear, but if you're like me, I had to wear what they gave me. I had to use what they gave me. So a 3 to 5 second delay in a room like this could equate to the loss of detail where the victim could be, where my fellow firefighter could be, my way out. That could equal deadly consequences. So you need to know how long your camera takes. A recent student told me in our Michigan class at Great Lakes Hot. He said, I did all of my thermal imaging training for scans in cold smoke, artificial smoke, and scanned with no issues until I took your class with my camera. And when I scanned and saw fire, my camera took 1 to 2 seconds every time it shifted. And I didn't know that. Why did he not know that? Because their thermal imaging training lacked one key thing: thermal, heat. If you read the new NFPA standard, that's the firefighter qualification standard, NFPA 1001, it changed to 1010. It requires all new firefighters to have requisite knowledge on maintenance, care, and operation, and be able to do 3 things with a camera, which requires, 2 of which requires a fire environment. No PowerPoints. Imagine that. Here's a very important statistic from Michael Whitty's study. We've actually summarized this study. If you don't want to read 28 pages, I narrowed it down to 2 for you. And it tells you in this study that Boston, FDNY, and Chicago, when they disoriented them in a fire environment and they gave them a thermal imaging camera, they found their way out 100% of the time. Now, you put a smoke detector up in your home and you change the batteries regularly because it's always on duty. Cheapest insurance you can buy. Now, why wouldn't the fire department invest in something like this and train their firefighters to do 2 things: identify objects and hazards and know how to use that camera so they could get in and get out? Because whether you like it or not, fire departments need firefighters. And without firefighters, there are no fire departments. And the more firefighters who get injured or disabled, God forbid, killed, how long does it take you to replace that valuable, priceless asset that you just lost? How many people are getting hurt and spending needless time out of work when we could have simply solved the problem and found their way out? It breaks my heart every time I read they fell through a floor. They had a truss collapse. They didn't know rapid fire change or rapid fire behavior was coming. The recent testimony that Seek Thermal shared on their testimonials from another department said a captain called the chief and said he was adamant that the Fire Pro 300 kept them from getting involved in the flashover because he saw the bad things coming, as Dr. Gasaway talks about. Like I said, talk to Dr. Gasaway, take his classes, tie these things 2 together, and you will be one jam up firefighter. Because then you use your brain, your skills, and the technology as one complete package. And when we talk about lost or disoriented, I haven't met one firefighter who's been on a significant amount of time who hasn't had an incident where they became lost or disoriented. I was lost or disoriented 3 times in my career, none of which were fun, 2 of which were in training. Yes, the guy who teaches it got lost in training in acquired structures. One was in a very large attic. I gave my camera up to the student and thought I could crawl in a straight line to the stairs and go downstairs and swap my bottle. And I crawled at an angle and ended up in a knee wall. When I started crawling across rafters and feeling insulation, I knew I was in trouble. You know how I got out? Kept calling out until I heard them, they heard me, and I worked my way towards the sound. We fell to the base level. Each year, firefighters get injured or have near misses and maydays because they become disoriented or lost or separated from crews. There are numerous contributing factors that you can get into. However, if we're not providing them with a secondary means of orientation, that when they get in trouble, I think we're negligent as a fire service. I think we're negligent if we split crews and we have 2 going in with a camera and 2 without. What's their emergency plan? What's their basic plan to use it to find the victim, to find the fire, to see the bad things coming so they don't get in the jam? Isn't it, from a loss prevention status or workers' comp status or risk management status, isn't it just an absolute disaster if you know there is a risk factor that you could mitigate by simply allowing them to see it and then fix it versus not see it and become a part of the problem? I mean, if you took that data and someone assimilated all the data of firefighters who were injured, who, if they were able to see the problem 6, 8, 10 feet away before they got into it, would they have got into that problem? Odds are probably not. They would have avoided it, went around it, mitigated it, did something. Most are not going to crawl into it and say, yeah, I'm going to go get trapped. So why don't we give them that data so they can make the decisions? And let's use that data to our advantage and stop repeating this broken record, because if you look at what's happening, it's always in limited to zero visibility. Look at firefighter rescue survey. The victims are found in limited to zero visibility. Where are firefighters becoming lost or disoriented? Limited or zero visibility. They're becoming separated from crews and hose lines and walls, all the things that we were taught to do, right? Because we don't hang on to hose lines or walls, because that's not where people are found typically. I love what they said in Kyle Romagus's talk. He said, engine companies don't search and find victims, they discover victims on the way to the fire, which is true. Firefighter Rescue Survey points out that they encounter victims. But if we can use the camera when we get in trouble to regain orientation, maybe we just got off a few feet and find the hose line, find the layout of the structure, which way the fire is. What if we were to find egress points, such as doors, windows, anything that leads us out, infrastructure, stairs? Doesn't that matter to you? Especially if you want to know where someone might be, if it's a two-story house and people are sleeping upstairs, isn't it important to know where the stairs are? In zero visibility, yeah, it's very important. And if we look at Don Abbott's work, God rest his soul, he did a phenomenal keystone of work for the fire service with Project Mayday. If you read, depending on which statistics you read, he shows 35% of firefighters were self-rescued in a Mayday, which means they rescued themselves. 25% the same crew that was with the firefighter found them. 30% the adjacent interior crew. 90% are rescued, if you add it all up, by someone already operating inside the structure. This reinforces the fact that every firefighter should be trained and drilled in saving their own procedures. Take Robert Ramirez's class on the Mayday mindset, one of the best out there, and listen to his data. And understand, if we just simply added this situational awareness TIC in that core critical area that Rob talks about with Tim and all his guys, that they could easily access, they could find the fellow firefighters down. What if they're pinned down? And they could tell the crew where they are versus I don't know where I'm. What if they could identify things that tell them I'm in a bedroom, I'm in a bathroom, where I don't know. If they can use that data, that could help them. I'm near the fire's coming towards me. Isn't that important to give that data to that RIT team? If last thing I read, 8% of the time the RIT team made the rescue. So if there's a crew already inside and they hear that and they go, oh, he's right there, I can go get him or her. Why not do that? Why are we not investing in the ultimate asset we all have, which is our firefighters? These things are not expensive anymore. We have multi-million-dollar fire stations, multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment and fire trucks and apparatus. Some of the fire trucks now are just amazing what they cost. They're beautiful pieces of apparatus, don't get me wrong, but I'm seeing fire trucks that are $2 and $3 million. And I'm seeing fire stations that have more money in recliners, beds, and TVs than they do in thermal imaging cameras and behavioral health programs, which is sad. We need to have a reset when it comes to our priorities. Because if it's truly for them, we should do everything we could to find them and get them out and be able to protect our firefighters so they can go to the next mission to save them and quit ignoring the data, because it's something I wrote the other day. Technology and training should not be adversaries. They should be compadres. They should be working together. And if I'm looking for a firefighter who's down, we have done this more times than I can count. Unless I'm overseas where my friends wear covers on their bottles. Yes, they wear covers on their composite bottles because they don't want to damage them. Here, I can clearly see this composite bottle. I can tell you what kind of air pack that is, as Basil Ibrahim does so well in his class. You can tell that's a Scott pack. Oh, that's pretty easy. You can actually see where the little highlighted screw head is, where you can unscrew and take one of the batteries out so the pass device don't go off when you're doing training. Nobody does that. But anyways, I can see that right there. I can see the shiny part of the strobe light. I can see the Kevlar strap that goes around telling me that. And if I was looking the other way, I could see that other second stage of the Scott pack. And I can tell that's me because that's that hideous orange strap that I used to wear all the time. I can see their EBSS hose where you pop the two buttons, because even if they don't have their air pack on, they ditch their pack, I can see parts of their body like, hey, I can see the clips on his coat. I can see whether or not he's still got his face piece on. Does he ripped it off? If he's got his bottle on, is it dark? That means he or she is breathing air or was breathing air. If the bottle is white or hot, they're empty and they're not breathing air. So I can tell a lot before I even touch them to find out what's going on. How much more valuable is that by using this data to help our firefighters find other firefighters who are in trouble? Do this drill the next time you do a RIT training. Have a firefighter sit in a corner and put them at different distances to see how effective your camera works. 7 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. My friends overseas, 5 meters, 10 meters, whatever you want to do, and see in nasty smoke conditions. Don't do fake smoke, artificial smoke. That stuff that produces fake firefighting. Don't do that. I'm just telling you, artificial smoke should only be used in recruits when you're building competency, because it actually, in some cases, is more dangerous than real smoke, depending on what's in it. Make sure you understand that if we don't give them realistic conditions, we can't produce realistic firefighters. And use the camera to identify things like, there's the firefighter, they're on their back, they're on their belly, they're on their side, they have their face piece on, they have a regulator in. Their line from their regulator is dark, their bottle is dark, their waist belt is buckled. Then I don't have to do all that stuff that I was taught to do. If they're 6 feet from the door, I'm going to do the ugliest drag you ever seen and get them out that door and get them to medical aid. Whereas if their pack is off, their regulator is off, their face piece is off, that's different. They're tangled in wires, they're under, debris, they have fire encroaching upon them. All that can be seen with a quick scan and then communicated to that team to go help that firefighter. Make sure we do that. And please, if you've watched my webinars before, when you pick the device up, when you're going to look in these conditions, these are usually the worst conditions you're going to face, wipe the lens and stay low. If I hear another firefighter say the camera whited out on me and they don't understand to wipe the lens, I think I'm going to do a national PR commercial on why cameras show a white or gray screen. It is not what you think. It is a common problem everywhere. Please, let's help fix that by basic behaviors. And if we want to locate ways out, isn't it nice just to be able to see something like, hey, that's a really nice stair rail in this old house. And I could see the fire over their head moving from in front of them towards behind them into that room. It's moving hot to cold. I could clearly see the eagle on that firefighter's helmet and the reflected energy off their face piece. I can tell one of those firefighters is the live burn instructor and one of them is the student. Wonder why? I think it's an interesting code that if you look into NFPA and life safety codes, it talks about, public buildings, commercial structures. You ever heard of a panic bar? It says a panic and fire exit hardware must be approved and consist of a push pad or crossbar that's 30 to 48 inches above the floor. So if I'm down low and I'm trying to find my way out and I scan and I see a door frame and the center of the door has a metal shiny bar on it, the camera thinks shiny metals are a different temperature because of something called emissivity. It reflects energy and looks different to the camera, which points you towards the door. What about a doorknob? What about a glass door? What about a glass window that has a metal frame in a commercial building? Couldn't you locate all of those? Look up the Meadowwood Court incident where that firefighter identified a window and jumped out the window using a Bullard camera to do so. This is not new stuff, but some of this training is being neglected, absent, or not even focused on because most of them are getting this. Here's how you turn it on. Read that little number in the bottom right-hand corner. Red is hot. You can't see through glass, which all that will get you killed. By the way, SEEK provides, those of you who bought a FirePro 300, inside the box, if you flick the quick reference card over, it goes to 14 of the videos we've already made. And if you go to the website at the end of this webinar, you will find 17 hours of free training we partnered with SEEK to produce. There is no excuse for you not to have training. It does not replace live fire training, but there's plenty of information for you free to use. I told you what my mission is. I'm serious about it. So let's look at some examples of object and hazard identification. This is looking down the stairs in a fire training environment. You can see the stairs. Well, what can I see coming up the stairs from one side? We have a fire below us coming from one side over, telling us fire's downstairs, which means where are we? We're above the fire. Above the fire is one of the most dangerous places you can operate, and we do that on a regular basis in the US. I'm not against operating above the fire. I'm against operating above the fire and not knowing you're above the fire and what conditions really are, because firefighters don't see color here and they think they're fine. And then a couple of minutes, all of a sudden their gear is saturated and they're in pain. They don't understand. They don't see color yet because these surfaces haven't heated it up enough to colorize. But that doesn't mean this convective currents are not hot. They're moving high to low pressure, hot to cold, and up your pants leg in many cases. So that means we know where the stairwell is, we know where the fire is, we might need a hose line. That's a simple little demonstration for you to use. And then let's talk about application modes of these cameras. The FirePro 300 and 200 both have something called survey mode. Survey mode gives you the advantage to colorize environments early. I will caution you, you don't want to use this in super hot environments because you'll get nothing but color, and you'll kind of violate that standard I talked about with NFPA earlier, where you won't have a balanced image between gray and color. If you look at the image on the left, that's TI basic, black, gray, white, yellow, orange, red, yellow engaging at 302 Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius for my friends overseas. By simply pressing the cheat code, if you press the power button and the flashlight button 2 times, so like double click them, it'll go to survey mode. You don't have to press and hold 3 seconds like it says in the instructions. And you will see color beginning at 150 degrees. The background is now blue, indicating you're in survey mode, which is a low temperature mode or investigative mode. So you're getting at around 65 degrees Celsius or 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And you see that thermal layer, it's in the exact same place it was in grayscale. Look at it. If I was going to teach firefighters to become thermographers, I say you've got to recognize patterns, non-uniform patterns, not temperature, heat, patterns that shouldn't be there. Heat, where is it moving? You can see that he is sticking his face in it. They are not low enough. The first picture he is, the second picture he's not. So we could use this for size up, making entry, fire attack, assessing our attack efforts, search. Overhaul is a big one, because overhaul, they use that spot temperature, which is incorrect. I've read numerous reports on that. False alarms and investigative calls could save you hours. Other uses, like several of my instructors have used it for down power lines, lost person searches, and more. Many, many applications outside of just the fire. So this is the value of what we call an investigative mode, or SEEK calls their survey mode. Look at the difference in these 2 pictures from Chief John Lightly, one of my instructors, of one of the house fires he went to. In the picture on the left, this is TI basic. Like I said, colorizes at 302 Fahrenheit or 150 C. You can see the alligatoring charring and the wood that's fallen down. Versus if I switch it to survey mode, it's showing me more hot spots because it colorizes earlier, 65 degrees Celsius or 150 degrees Fahrenheit. If you want to see examples of this, that QR code right there takes you to examples of survey mode. My motto is when seconds count, early colorization of an area of concern from years. From a very, very long time ago, when thermal imaging cameras were first in use, before we ever saw them, they used a concept called isotherms. Isotherm meant that you had a grayscale image and they colorized an area or region of interest. Many manufacturers do this with the same color palette you're all familiar with called TI Basic. TI Basic was originally black, gray, white. It's black, gray, white, yellow, orange, red. Yellow, orange, and red are technically isotherms. We're colorizing areas of interest that the manufacturer chooses when that shows up. Unfortunately, they're not all standardized. Some show it early, some show it late. And as I told you, the absence of color is not the absence of heat. You need to learn your camera and train in live fire environments to see what this looks like and what it doesn't look like when you realize that, hey, shiny surfaces are also a problem, because I can have a shiny surface that shows cold on the camera when it's really hot, because thermal imaging cameras do not read shiny surfaces well. So look at this example of what we call post knockdown. Walking up as a battalion chief at an exterior fire, backside of a shopping mall. They've already knocked the fire down. We're in survey mode. Look at the residual heat and fire left on the ground, and look at the heat on these masonry block walls. I want you to watch as it shifts back to TI Basic and ask yourself, which one of these would capture your attention? This one or that one? 50 Shades of Gray or early colorization? Right now, we're just focusing on those yellow spots on the ground because the average firefighter is not getting more than 1 to 2 hours of thermal imaging training, so they're looking for color. Until we fix the training issue, we've got to give them simpler, easier ways to identify it. I'm working on my best to fix the training issue, but we're a 14-member cadre and travel about 60 to 100 events a year, and there's only so many places we can go. So if you look at that, you can clearly see of areas of interest that need to be dealt with, mitigated, or cooled, and potentially extension into the building, which, as my mentor, Chief Mitchum, taught me, when in doubt, check it out. Because here, grayscale is awesome, but it doesn't really give me a specific area I should look at. Because your camera uses 256 contrasting shades of gray, versus in a investigative mode, such as survey mode, I can see the problem earlier. Make their job easier, don't make it harder. Okay, they already have enough challenges and issues to deal with. Side by side, which one of these gets the average firefighter's attention? not your A+ firefighter goes to every conference and understands all this. You've got to make everybody be able to use it. Those of you who teach in-service understand that. Not everybody's going to be up to the same standard. Not everybody's going to love the job. Not everybody's going to be, all in and do thermal imaging training, but you want everybody to have the same basic skill set. And that basic skill set, in my opinion, should be way above the minimum standard. That's why this camera is way above the minimum standard. Okay. And as a review, I want you to look at this. These are the current other cameras that are on the market. You can screenshot this. You'll have access to the PowerPoint. It shows you their resolution, their refresh rate, whether they're pistol grip, whether they're SCBA integrated, how they're oriented, mass mounted. $1 sign is very affordable. $2 signs about average. $3 signs are up is too expensive for a situational awareness camera when you can buy a decision-making camera for the same amount of money. Fire departments, you need to do your homework. If you're just going to spend that kind of money on something that's going to be integrated in your air pack, ask yourself, when was that made? When are they going to stop making it? Can I upgrade it? And is it really going to do what it says it's going to do? Test and evaluate every thermal imaging camera. You spec hose lines, you spec fire gear, you spec fire trucks. I get phone calls every year around the end of the budget season saying they got XYZ money to spend. They're just going to buy a camera. Which one should they buy? And I don't tell them. I tell them, pick your top 3. Here's the lesson plan, how to do it. Oh, we just want to know which one to buy. I'm like, no, you're not going to be mad at me. You need to do your homework. Because if you're making a life safety purchase, something that your guys and gals are going to put their life, bet their life on, it better be a good one, not a cheap one. And cheap, in my opinion, is not just based on price. It's based on performance, okay? And if you want to learn more about all those, this is a brand comparison where you can actually look at all these online on our website. We have over 1,000 hours of burn time that you can look at the different models from older ones to newer ones. It gives you a basic overview. It's not super crazy in depth, but it gives you a lot of information about situational awareness TICs and how you can evaluate them. 1,000 hours of us playing with these things in cold smoke, high heat environments, above the fire, in the basement, close to the fire, high moisture content from sprinkler heads, just everything to see what will work, what doesn't. Do they do what they claim to do? That's what we do for you. We are the connection between the manufacturer and you, trying to make the manufacturer listen and make the products better for the firefighters. This is the Fire Pro 200. This is basically an overview of it, basically the instruction manual in one slide. People always ask the difference between it and the 300. 1, it is cheaper. 2, it has less resolution and less field of view. So you're looking around 30,000 pixels versus 76,800 pixels, and you're looking at a much more narrow field of view. This is a very close-up personal safety camera. I'd say within 7-8 feet, works really well. But in my opinion, I love the Fire Pro 300. It's my personal favorite because you get a greater field of view. And you get all the features of the VRS without the price point, and it's tough. It's not invincible. Okay, don't break out windows with it. Don't smash it on the floor and say it broke. Well, of course it does. I watched a video where they put this thing in a tumbler with rebar on the edges, and they tumble this thing for over 2 hours. It doesn't break, but yet 30 minutes on a firefighter, we broke it. So understand that they have to push that button like 50,000 times. They do a lot of things to test to make them durable, but yet somehow we decide to break them. But this is the best situational awareness camera on the market currently. Nothing else can touch it. Don't believe me, go test it yourself. Try it out. My guys love it. Every firefighter that's used it loves it. We have a motto, burn with it to believe it. No matter what you're using, burn with it to believe it. Don't believe me, don't believe the salesperson. Set up a fire environment, use our lesson plan. You don't have to be influenced by the salesperson or us. We want you to have an unbiased opinion and go see if it does what it's supposed to do. That's all we ask. The Fire Pro 300 obviously has the decision-making power of a decision-making camera, but it doesn't have the insulative properties. It can take up to 302 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius internal for up to 5 minutes. It also does image and video capture. And when I said if you press both buttons at the same time to shift application modes, the green button's the power button, the black button is the flashlight or application button. If you double click those, you can click right through the application modes without having to press and hold for 3 seconds. It's a cheat code. It's very fast. You hold it like a cell phone. It's intuitive, and it doesn't get in your way. 325 grams, 6-hour battery life. Amazing piece of technology. And if you want to learn more about everything I just shared with you, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have over 400 of our own videos, hundreds of other videos. They are organized by playlist, brand, and model. Then that center QR code goes to my website. There are 17 hours of webinars. Once this is uploaded, there'll be 18 hours of webinars. And then this presentation and every presentation I've done in the last 2 years for Seek and these webinars that we do every month for free for you guys is there for you to download and use. We give away more free content than anyone with the hope that you will use this to help your department, help yourself. You don't have to wait on your department to train you. I understand the frustrations of that. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, frustrated about department not moving forward. I get it. We all have those battles to fight, but we're giving you the ability to be better. Don't wait on someone else to make you better. Use this information. Your family's worth the investment. The people you swore to protect is worth the investment. A little bit of time and a right training with the right technology can come out to an amazing result. The preparation is the work. So please check these resources out, share them, send us an email if you have any questions. My contact information is here. That's my website, my email address. We post on social media every day. I have lead instructors have their own pages from Joey Baxter, Tim Mills, Thomas Anderson, Reagan Underwood, and John Lightly just started his. Our YouTube channel, Instagram, to LinkedIn, to Twitter. We're even on TikTok, even though I don't look at it a lot. If you send me a message on TikTok, I'm probably not going to answer it. Just going to be honest with you. I'll post and I'll walk away. I answer all the other messages. I think TikTok is dangerous. That's just me. But we do listen. We respond to text messages, emails within 24 to 48 hours typically. You know, we travel a lot. We do a lot because we want you to be a lot. Okay. You can't compete against us for one reason. We want you to win. This is not about me or my cadre being better. It's about making the fire service better. And you've got to share this information and use it. Use it, share it, learn it, and be better than us. Our ceiling should be your floor. That is our hope for you. Go out, make a difference in the fire service, make a difference for the citizen, make a difference for your family, and get to a point where you can enjoy your retirement and help young firefighters become old firefighters. God bless you. Thank you for your time. Jordan, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Andy. So if you guys have any further questions after this webinar, please feel free to reach out to Andy directly or myself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. We just want to remind everyone that we do have a burn program where you can request a free demo unit, put it to the test and burn with it. Like Andy said, the best way to believe it is to burn with it. So the link to that to register will be found on our website or our Instagram bio. Feel free to check that out. Follow us on our socials. If there was something that Andy mentioned that you want to go back and reference in this webinar, we will be sending out a recording to everyone who registered. So you'll be able to reference anything that he mentioned. And yeah, thanks again, Andy, for your time. And thank you to everyone for registering for today's webinar.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Thank you, Jordan.
Yep.